What I see happening today in language is that there is slowly being established an academy of usage, the rules of which are mostly dictated by the executive directors of corporations like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Nike runners. And along with them, you have as an influence upon the language the effects of institutions of higher learning, where in a lot of courses what's being preached is a jargon that it takes 4 years to learn to get a bachelor's in, for example, a pumping up and expanding of language, so to speak, in a way that hasn't quite happened before in the history of English. Which is, I think that the people that control the symbols of the world control the world. And corporate executives, advertising executives, media outlets, politicians have always understood this. So if people are asking what the function of poetry is in society, I would say one of the things I would point to is that poets are sort of like antioxidants. They counteract the radicalism of these very drastic changes which are presently bombarding language like gamma radiation, you know? And the difference between, say, myself and an advertising executive is when I write, I employ symbols that I play with without a preconceived notion or agenda that I want to fulfill by the way the words influence your mind or the symbols influence your mind. So I represent a playful reminder to human beings that language itself is something that was originally born for us to express ourselves completely and naturally, which I think is almost the basis of human identity.
I'm curious as to how and why you decided to be a poet in the first place.
I made a lifetime commitment to it. I remember specifically the moment. It was in a first-year English class at the University of Victoria, and a professor from Berkeley, Jerry Schwartz, who knew how to read poetry, read Dylan Thomas's poem Fern Hill, which I still consider one of the most perfect lyrics in the English language. And whatever that poem was doing to me, and I still don't know the whole of it, and doubt if I ever will, it certainly inspired me to want to do that myself.
You were once the Poet Laureate of Ottawa. What led up to that, to you becoming the Poet Laureate of Ottawa? And what does a Poet Laureate do?
Poet Laureate originally, the laurel aspect of it, which is why it's laureate, was associated with the god Apollo in Greek mythology. So at the Olympics specifically, one of the great honors awarded not only the winning athletes, but also the towns they were from, was to have a poet like Pindar, who actually did this from in the 8th century, celebrate not only the youth and prowess and achievement of the athlete, but also the virtue in the old Roman sense of the town that spawns such physical superiority and beauty in the form of a young man and in some cases a young woman. So that was the first function of a poet laureate, to celebrate, and it still is the prime function of poets, to celebrate.
The weight of the day's eyes off her shoulders, knuckles and knees creviced with Johnson's wax. There are never any old wrecks rusting outside the door, pirated for parts for years, like the carcasses of some forgotten hunt.
So I was going through all of this at the time, and certainly wouldn't have expected myself to be a candidate for anything like poet laureateship, And then one day, out of the blue, after being reviewed as the Ayatollah White of Ottawa, who gets standing ovations, I was being offered the laureateship. And I'm not necessarily picking on them, though I could enjoy doing it, for various reasons. But people like Harper doubt people's reception of my use in this society, It's hurtful, to be sure, it betrays a lack of understanding on his part into other modes of experience other than lobbyists. But it doesn't make it any less important on the principle that just because you don't understand that gravity is in play or understand why it should be at all, it doesn't mean that it isn't still very effectual. And it could be lethal to assume that it wasn't. So no one should doubt the power of symbols in the world.
You have an answer to a question that I haven't asked yet.
I wanted to spend my life at something that would cost me nothing less than my life because I don't want spare life left over when I'm on my deathbed. They'll give you all their fuzzies, Benji, and use you against their own. They'll tout you to the light bars that microwave your works. They'll disinfect with giddy compliments, suggest half memberships in this and that, foil your one good eye with social niceties, and stun you with the nonchalance of secret tours in hidden circles.